Passing against the boards or a wall, aka wall ball, is the best thing a beginner or intermediate player can do to get better at lacrosse. However, it reaches a point where advanced players are just tuning their sticks and maintaining their skills as opposed to improving them. For an actual wall ball routine for both players and goalies, please see the link in the text associated with this video. In a team setting, having beginners spread out evenly around the rink and practice their passing, catching, or loose balls, and shooting against the boards is one of the best ways for coaches to gauge the ability and provide corrective measures for the players. The only drill that might be better for this is the board shuttles warm-up drill, because the coaches don't have to cover as much ground in order to provide feedback to individual players. However, this drill has only a fraction of the reps for each individual, which is ultimately the best way for them to get better. The golden rule for this drill and almost all others is for coaches to have at least 3 balls with them at all times. In that way, players aren't having to run all over the floor chasing down balls from errant passes. Like any fundamental skill in any sport, there are 4 phases to each movement: preparatory movements, force-producing movements, a critical instant where something special happens, and a follow-through and/or recovery back to the starting position. All of these compartmentalized movements are the most efficient when they happen from the athletic position, which I discuss at length in our defensive drill video on the athletic position. Focusing first on overhand passing, which is a must for beginners. The preparatory movements are to start with their stick in the triple threat position and having the player reach their arms back and transfer their weight to their back foot. The force-producing movements are when they transfer their weight to their front foot and rotate their hips and torso, being sure to step with the opposite leg of the side they hold the stick on. The critical instant is when they simultaneously push forward with their top hand and pull back with their bottom hand, creating a lever action, with the ball being released by their ear on a regular pass and their stick square to the target. Lastly, the follow-through is when they point at the target with their stick as opposed to stopping short and pulling back with their top hand instead of continuing to push forward. The recovery in this case would be returning their stick back to the triple threat position in order to be ready to receive a potential pass back. While observing players passing against the boards, coaches will see problems in one or more of these movements and should focus on the most glaring issue when giving them initial feedback. In most cases, the biggest issue in the beginning is often the critical instant, with players holding onto the ball for too long in their passing sequence, sending the ball low into the ground, which could also be the result of too much hook/whip on their stick, meaning shooting strings that are too tight. Other issues in this movement phase are releasing the ball too far behind their head, sending it too high, or in extreme cases, having the ball fall out behind them. Otherwise, seeing the ball slip out of the stick left or right when the stick isn't coming over the shoulder square and to the target. As mentioned, the key is in finding that sweet spot, with the ball coming out of the stick right by the player's ear, which is the objective of variation number 1 of this drill, where players are instructed to pass the ball against the glass or boards at eye level from approximately 8 to 10 meters away from the sideboards. It's also helpful for coaches to provide targets for players to aim at, with duct tape targets 30 centimeters by 30 centimeters or a foot by a foot being a good tool for local associations to add to the glass or boards at their home rink. Variation 2 sees players move in to 2 meters away from the boards, passing high onto the glass and catching the ball directly in the air, versus the previous variation where players are more so practicing corralling loose balls after they pass. Catching the ball in the air is a great way for players to practice their, quote, soft hands, absorbing the ball and drawing their stick back as it enters their stick. Coaches can also ask that players track their success rate to see how many they catch in a row without dropping the ball, in 1 minute for instance, which is a way to make things fun for the more competitive players.
Everybody ready? Stick should be up. Okay, we're going with a sticker for the most. 3, 2, 1, go!
Beginners should practice with their hips squared to the glass, whereas intermediate and advanced players can also practice with their hips perpendicular, which can be used as a warm-up technique for quick release catching and shooting, especially in an adjacent catch and shoot scenario. Another thing players can practice from up close to the boards like this is quick sticks or flip passes. Another technique players can practice against the boards is their fake patterns, before eventually moving to practice on an open net or against a goalie, which is variation 3. Coaches can have players practice a certain series of fakes, left, right, high, low, also incorporating head, foot, and body movements in order to sell the fakes. Fake short side and reach far side, fake far side and shoot short side. For more advanced players, they can practice short, far, short, far, dip and dunks, and cripplers as examples of more advanced fake patterns. Variation 4 sees players face away from the boards after making their pass from about 10 meters away, turning and catching the ball across their body and over their shoulder, as they might do in the case of a fast break or other times in the case of an errant pass to the opposite side of their body from that which they hold the stick. Practicing their shooting against the boards in variation number 5 is another way to get a bunch of practice reps before getting into more specific drills, shooting on goalies, or adding footwork to shots. In this case, players should be about 10 to 15 meters away from the boards. This variation and all other variations of this drill can also be practiced on the run versus stationary, which is generally more game-specific when it comes to the dynamic nature of the game. That said, starting off stationary is the best way to stabilize the skill before adding dynamic footwork. You can get as creative as you want with wall ball. The sky's the limit. Please check out our webpage or app for the many other specific variations that can be added to your sequences of passing against the boards or your go-to wall ball spot. Usually the nearest school or rec center with a nice backstop. Simply post up with some tunes, some water, some Gatorade, and chalk some targets or a net onto the wall and watch your lacrosse game transform.